Good morning, all, and welcome to the Consumer Engagement in Transportation Electrification, addressing the challenges of a global pandemic. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is the first webinar of our fall webinar series. We have plenty more engaging topics to come. My name is Simbiat Yusuf, Member Relations Manager here at Fourth, and I will be moderating this panel today. Attendees, please be sure to submit all your questions via the attendee chat. We will get through them during the Q&A portion at the end of the presentations today. And a little introduction who we are at Fourth. Fourth is a nonprofit trade association. We are advocating for smart transportation. We work primarily in four main areas, which are our industry development, demonstration project, advocacy, and consumer engagement. If you would like to hear more information about Fourth, our membership, other events, and anything coming up at Fourth, you can find that at FourthMobility.org, and we will share some more information after the webinar. And we are currently hiring at Fourth. We are currently seeking qualified candidates for our Senior Manager of Strategic Communications and Partnerships. We are currently accepting applications through August 28th. If you are thinking you're a good candidate for that position, please do share with your networks and apply as well. And some announcements, we, along with our co-presenting partner, EV Noir, we are going to have the E-Mobility Equity Virtual Conference now spanning over 2 days, November 12th and 13th, 2020. This 2-day conference will explore and facilitate real conversations about strategies and best practices for engaging diverse communities, often hit worst and first by air pollution. So we hope you can join. We will have the registration link with our recap email today. And registration and sponsorship opportunities are now open for the Roadmap Conference. The Roadmap Conference will return June 29th through the 30th of 2021. Just a note, we will be closely monitoring the COVID-19 situation to ensure safety and the well-being of our attendees. We will also include some more information regarding this. And our speakers today, we are joined today by Ford's Program Manager, Stephen Alaman, Neil Baunsgard, Electric Vehicle Program Manager at the Environmental Center, and Dav Cvitkovic, Chief Operating Officer at Plug-in Drive, and Joel Levin, Executive Director of Plug-in America. This will be a discussion of strategies to engage consumers and increase awareness of clean transportation options. During this webinar, our speakers will show how to educate and raise awareness for electric vehicles during this current times, and how we can make sure all communities can access clean transportation information during this time as well. Stephen manages the EV Ambassador Program and organizes ride and drive events in Oregon, Washington, and California. Prior to Ford, Stephen worked for Multnomah County on urban forest management and community outreach. Stephen holds a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Sciences from the University of Oregon. Our second speaker today, Neil, is a self-described energy and transportation geek. He works at the Environmental Center for the past 4 years, accelerating the adoption of new clean technology in Central Oregon, such as LED lighting, hybrid water heaters, and courses in environmental vehicles of all shapes and sizes. He holds a degree in environmental economics and energy policy from Western Washington University. And he has worked in transportation electrification, corporate sustainability, and in energy efficiency for the past 7 years. Our third speaker today, Dav, is the Chief Operating Officer at Plug-in Drive. As the project leader, Dav spearheads the launch of the EV Discovery Center in 2017 with the firm belief that electric vehicles are for everyone. Dav holds an MBA and BAA from Simon Fraser University. based in her hometown of Vancouver, British Columbia. She serves as a board director of the Foundation for Environmental Stewardship. Our final speaker today, Joel, is an advocate for low carbon technologies and a frequent speaker and writer on topics relating to electric vehicles, clean energy, water policy, and climate policy. He is focused on continuing to build Plug in America as a leading independent voice for electric vehicles in the United States. Attendees, today we will be discussing consumer engagement campaigns during COVID, consumer engagement strategies for the 2020 National Drive Electric Week, and how we can best develop best practices for safe riding drives. And attendees, one more notice, please remember to submit any questions through the attendee chat. Again, we will get through all of them at the end of the presentations. And now I will pass it over to our first speaker of the day, Stephen.
Awesome. All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining our webinar today. And thank you, Simbi, for the great introduction. All right. Well, I'd first, oh, shoot. Yeah, we gotta switch the slides. Can you move the slides, Simbi? Oh, I got it. All right. Well, I'd first like to acknowledge some of the challenges that our communities are currently facing. With the COVID-19 pandemic, it's brought to surface many inequities that we're facing. And a lot of communities are facing a digital divide where they don't necessarily have the same access to the technologies that many of us are relying on for communications to consumers or simply keeping in touch with people in our personal lives. I'd also like to address that there's the Black Lives Matter movement that is at the center of many of the focuses for a lot of communities. And that outreach during this time may be ineffective or seem disingenuous if it's just kind of, business as usual type of outreach. So I'd like to encourage everyone to, make sure to try to listen and communicate with as much compassion as you can. However, there's still definitely a need for more outreach during this time. And I think that a lot of us are really eager to capitalize on the momentum that we have currently with the EV industry. Something Fourth is trying to do to kind of help with this digital divide and understanding that some people work during the day, or there may be language barriers that we're not able to address as adequately through virtual content. So we're trying to work and create content that it will be available all the time on YouTube and expand the languages in the content that we offer as well to help break down these barriers. We've also found that working and expanding partnerships during this time is a really effective way to share audiences and reach new audiences during this time when it's harder to go face-to-face. All right. And some of our other outreach that's been impacted would be the Fourth Showcase. That's, if anyone's unaware, it's a showcase where people were able to walk in at any time and test drive electric vehicles. It was a brand neutral experience. And that currently is closed for the time being to practice an abundance of caution for COVID-19. And the same goes for our ride and drive program. I personally don't really expect it to be back until 2021, just to ensure that we're taking all the precautions we can. We do have a ride and drive COVID-19 protocol, but we've decided that it's better to just not take any risks at this time, specifically in Portland, Oregon, where some of the surrounding areas have had COVID pop up quite a bit. Other large conferences such as EVS 33 were canceled, or was canceled, and Fourth made we took our roadmap conference and made it virtual. So that's something that we're seeing as well. Our fleet is something we've realized is a good resource we can use during this time to try to help out the community and maintain those relationships with not just our community partners, but also consumers as well, to get the message out. One of the things we've done is we partnered with the Botanist House, which is a restaurant in Portland. And they had this really cool program that they're doing along with our AmeriCorps member, Sean, and he was doing a great job going out there and working with them. He was actually driving some of the vehicles and donating or dropping off food as well. Essentially, the program donated, I think it was 2,000 meals a week or something like that, to people that lost their jobs during COVID-19. And this was a really cool program because it helped keep the supply chains for their local produce and everything going as well. So it kept a lot of people employed, and we were able to donate or loan some electric vehicles to them so they were not creating emissions during their deliveries. Let's see. And we also have been working with Virginia Garcia to loan them one of our plug-in hybrids, actually, because they needed something with a long battery life that was able to charge devices as well. And we loaned them this Outlander to go out and provide COVID testing and bring treatments to people who are experiencing houselessness. We also maintain 3 Honda Fits that are located at the Oregon Food Bank and the Hacienda CDC. These are vehicles that can be used by the community or the organizations where they are stored at. During this time, we've actually seen a large uptick in our long-term EV test drives. We used to have some other vehicles on here as well that weren't just Nissan Leafs, but currently I believe it's just the 2 Leafs, and we try to keep them, really affordable, the prices for these vehicles for people to take them out for. Some people use them for a couple days, some people use them for a week, but both Nissan Leafs have been just absolutely booked almost the entire time, which has been really encouraging to see. And we believe part of this is because that less people are using public transportation, and so they're looking for safe, clean alternative options. There's a list of some of the cleaning procedures we do below if anyone's interested in knowing what we do to make sure that we're ensuring safety. Anyone with an electric vehicle can do this if they are willing to share their vehicle as well. So we're launching the Cruise project in Hood River. This also will be another car share project, and kind of the same thing. We're just trying to make sure that it's safe as possible. We're working with Envoy to have a lot of campaigns around being a good neighbor and wearing a mask and practicing, cleaning the vehicles when you leave and just being really considerate about that, and especially more considerate during COVID-19. We believe that this car share program will, also increase. We want to use this opportunity to get people to kind of shift what they're doing and make them more comfortable with the idea of using a car share or driving electric. So this is a program I'm really excited about. We've worked pretty closely with our volunteers to create some EV testimonial videos that we'll be sharing during National Drive Electric Week, which I believe is September 26th to October 4th this year. And you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook. That's where those videos will be posted. And we're also working with our volunteers to uplift dealerships. Normally during this time of year, we work with volunteers to, host in-person ride and drive events, and, owners will bring out their vehicles, show them off, let people kind of look around and climb on inside. But with COVID-19, that's not really possible. So we're trying to cultivate this online community where if you have a question about a certain vehicle and you see that someone posted a video about, let's say a Chevy Bolt and how much they love it, you can reach out to them and say, hey, what were things you learned throughout the buying process, and what are things I should look out for? And we're also working with the EV ambassadors with the dealerships. Will be really cool because we want to leverage local dealerships to offer test drives during this time. We believe that's the safest place to go because they have the insurance where someone can go out and do a solo test drive. And we've got dealerships to look over our COVID-19 protocol and agree to cleaning the vehicles as well as offering personal protection equipment such as masks. Let's see. And yeah, we're also going to be offering incentives as well. So I'm really excited about that as well for folks that go out and take a test drive. All right, that is it for me.
Thank you so much, Stephen. And our second speaker for today, Neil.
All right, great. Can you hear me? I'll take that as a yes. I see my microphone moving. Hi, everybody. My name is Neil Baunsgard. Joining you from the Environmental Center located in Central Oregon. And this is our building. We're a relatively small organization serving a less populated region of Oregon, so a slightly different set of engagements and adaptations to COVID than others. But at the Environmental Center, we really work to try to accelerate the adoption of clean technology, and ultimately are an education-based group as well, working both in the classrooms and then on the electric transportation side with dealerships, utilities, and other stakeholders in the region, kind of doing a little bit of everything on the transportation electrification side. So, COVID has caused a lot of changes. This photo was from a in-person presentation at a library that we did back in February. It was right before COVID really started to take off. And so we've had to change our tune. Luckily, in trying to make things more accessible, especially since we have such a broad audience, we'd already begun live streaming all of our presentations and going back and putting captions on or having an in-person ASL translator. But basically, we did a few presentations where we just shifted, and it went from that being in person to then just being online. And we've had some pretty good engagement early on with that. I know everything's going virtual nowadays, but that was one of the shifts. But we also recognize that wasn't doing everything. So one of the things that we experimented with when we had lower case counts and had moved to a new stage in our area was going to existing events. We didn't want to cause any more reason for people to gather, but going to farmers market just to hand out literature and have some conversations. So avoiding those in-person ride and drive events as well, but still trying to have those conversations. And we were pretty nervous or cautious about experimenting with this, and we're really reassured. These events have been happening in an outdoor venue safely to protect participants and to protect primarily the farmers at the farmers market. And just the style of engagement when you're not getting in and out of a car, but you're kind of standing behind a table and having conversations, they naturally happen from a distance. So we were pleasantly surprised by this, and we're encouraged enough to continue in some of those lower case count counties in our region to go to these existing events. Not anywhere near the scale that we did before, but did give it a try, and we were pleasantly surprised for anybody that is thinking about their National Drive Electric Week events. So one of the other things that we did, similar to Fourth, was really trying to take a step back and recognize the value that electric vehicles are serving their drivers. So we called our video series Who Drives Electric? And it's really trying to tell the non-traditional stories, or rather combating a lot of people's assumptions about EV drivers. This is something we've talked about doing for a really long time, but it took COVID to do this. So the format that we used, which we're going to continue to do during Drive Electric Week, was we did those little, we produced a little video with a targeted EV driver. This first driver, her name is Amy, and she is a high school teacher. She bought a used Nissan Leaf 4 years ago and lives in an apartment. So she checks a lot of non-traditional boxes of EV ownership, and really trying to show that that's a lot of the drivers that are out there, and they're they might not fit the mold of what somebody else might see. And what we really find important with this is not only answering the specific questions of, well, how exactly do you charge in an apartment? When you moved there, what was the conversation that you had? But what we really wanted to do as well was to highlight different members of the community to show that it's somebody that you know. The more that you see your peers, we know that the peer-to-peer is an effective method, so we just wanted to amplify that. Also, we're in the business of engagement, but ultimately just trying to increase the adoption of different types of electric transportation. One of the ways that we did that was we took a step back and we said, what are some other forms of engagement that we could hop into that might come to play a little bit further down the road? So we're nimble, and we were able to start looking at workplace charging. So this is the community college working on some of that engagement with partners to help them build out a plan for infrastructure planning. We're able to partner with Fourth and Nissan to give out some chargers, but just this engagement with workplace charging is a really effective outreach strategy because long-term, those chargers are big advertisements for electrification. One other method that that I jumped into was we're, like I said, a relatively small organization and really community minded. And although we don't have a showcase like some of the other folks on the call, a lot of people know that we would be a good resource and oftentimes better than a lot of the dealerships. And with the interest in used EVs and incentives, we still have a lot of people with questions. They're still there. They still have the same questions that they had before, but they're not finding the same avenues to just show up and ask. So one of the things that I did was just set up an online schedule for folks to be able to book a quick EV chat with me. I originally called it EV Matchmaking because I feel like that's part of the job is like setting somebody up on a date with an EV or helping align those things. So this was one thing that we've experimented with, and it's been really helpful for the folks that have been curious for a long time and their situation may have changed to where they're really interested in an EV right now. Or in Oregon, we have a used incentive, so helping folks navigate the incentives around. Also recognizing we serve a role in Central Oregon. We don't have dealerships for many of the EVs that are offered on the market. And so people have to travel out of the area if they want to look at them. So we also use this as a way to connect current drivers with prospective drivers. And it's a pretty low tech solution, but this is one of the avenues that we used. All right, that is my presentation in a nutshell. This, as Stephen said, has been a really challenging process in an outreach world. I'll be really honest, trying to figure out what our priorities are and how to connect with people in a responsive way during Black Lives Matter and a global pandemic. It's hard. I'll be real. So we are trying to figure that out. And what we've recognized is that there are still important avenues. People are still asking the questions, and people are thinking about the future. And that's why we do the work that we do. So we've continued to be able to do some of that engagement, and excited to learn more from all of you and the other presenters as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Neil. Attendees, please be sure to submit your questions through the attendee chat. And we'll now hear from our third speaker. Our third speaker is Dav from Plug and Drive.
Thank you. Sorry, there's a bit of a delay on the slide. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here with my US colleagues. I'm joining you from Toronto, Canada, representing Plug and Drive. As we all know, COVID-19 has been a global wake-up call, really, and It's made us change the way we live, the way we work, and certainly the way we engage with our consumers. So today I will share with you a bit about Plug and Drive, the COVID-19 context in Canada, and help you understand how it's shaped some of our decision making and what some of the pivot points were along the way in terms of programming, what some of our future programs are, and then to give a bolster our look on EVs, giving sort of a global outlook on it, which does look very, very promising. We're seeing a new market leader shape up in Germany, and China has certainly been impacted by COVID. And I'll just share with you some trends that we see that are very positive and enlightening. So a bit about Plug and Drive. We are a nonprofit organization established in 2011. We're a convener, integrator, much like Fourth. We work in 4 key areas: policy. We helped with the implementation of a brand new federal incentive for electric vehicles last year. Advocating for incentives in public charging infrastructure, research. So we work with academia and other nonprofits in terms of research in the EV sector. We work with industry on a variety of partnerships to advance EV uptake. And of course, the cornerstone and foremost, our area of responsibility is consumer outreach and education. And I guess our flagship operation is what we call the Electric Vehicle Discovery Center. I know Fourth has a similar showcase in Oregon. I'd love to see it someday, hopefully one day soon. So ours is about a 6,000 square foot facility offering test drives. We have a home charging gallery. We also have an online store where consumers can purchase home charging solutions. We have a fantastic wall outlining the history of electric vehicles. We help consumers understand public charging, what apps to use, how to use it. We actually have public charging stations outside. And we also have a very large conference facility that's about 1,000 square feet. And we hosted anywhere, I'd say at peak time, about 100 events a year. Corporate events, and where various organizations would come for team building or executive planning. And then, of course, we would always give an EV educational 101 as well as a test drive opportunity. We were open 5 days a week. At peak, we're getting about 1,000 consumers a month. And since COVID hit, we've had to adapt our strategy very significantly, but what we're doing we feel is working and encouraging because we are seeing consumers come through the door. So just so you understand COVID in Canada, it's a slightly different scenario everywhere, but it was early March or mid-March, I should say, where the state of emergency took place and there was a lockdown for a period of time. We did actually get the okay to open on June 4th, which we did. You can see that it's leveled out significantly to the point where in July there were 0 new cases. We're now at what we call stage 3, whereby we can have events, and this was just announced last week, events up to 50 people. We have not pursued that yet. We are taking a very cautious, phased-in approach, and that seems to be meeting the needs of both our staff and consumers in a way that there is an understanding for safety and protocols. So in terms of our reopening, we did research the market very thoroughly to understand best practices. We looked at what some of the car dealerships were doing. In fact, I looked at a variety of different organizations across the board, including private golf clubs, to understand how they were approaching reopening. And so while we were open 5 days a week, we moved forward with an online scheduler, which has been extremely effective. You can access it from any page on our website, pluganddrive.ca. It's a it's a schedule where a person, once it's booked, goes automatically into that person's own personal calendar. We've implemented physical distancing procedures within the showcase. But I think one of the things that's proven to be highly effective is our online mandatory health declaration. So it's an online form everyone must fill out prior to arriving at the center. It goes through a series of questions, including whether the person has traveled within the last 2 weeks, whether there's any symptoms that they have or anyone in the household has, and they submit that prior to arrival. Upon arrival, they are also asked to reinstate whether anything has changed since that time. So we do have a fleet of cars, about 16 vehicles. We thought long and hard about whether we should have staff and the visitor in the car, and we have found a solution that we feel is a happy sort of neutral solution with the driver in the driver's seat, the test driver, and our staff person is in the back on a diagonal, which ensures 6 feet of safe distance. Everyone must wear a mask, and we allow between appointments about 20 minutes between each to clean and sanitize our vehicles and any touch points within the showcase center. So we have been open since June, and our appointments are booked solid. So we're at 3 days a week. We started with 2 to test it, and happily we're booked 3 days a week and all going well. Now that summer vacations are starting to close in, we may open it up a bit more. So another program that we had to think long and hard about in terms of how we would adapt it is our used EV incentive program. We're offering what we understand to be the only privately funded incentive for used electric vehicles, and we administer the entire program. The person must attend a seminar, and in the past, they also must take a test drive. And we decided that we felt there would be significant need, even during COVID, in the program. So we waived the test drive component, and we're offering it via webinars, and I'll share some of the results with you a little bit later on, but it is actually working exceptionally well, and there's been extreme uplift in terms of used EV purchases, which surprised us all during COVID. So overall, what we did do, like almost anyone is doing, is moving our engagement to a webinar format. Since I'd say April, I guess we implemented them. We've had about 15, so about 3 a month, over 1,000 attendees, and many more to come. One of the webinars that we started with was regarding workplace charging. We had just basically finished a publication, a very comprehensive guide called Lead the Charge. It basically can tell an employer anything they need to know about installing workplace charging, from the benefits, including employee retention and recruitment, how to assess employee demand for workplace charging, policy considerations such as fees, and a variety of other things. So we put a press on this because there was a federal incentive for those organizations wanting to install workplace charging, and they did actually keep this incentive in place. The deadline was July, so we pushed hard to help organizations understand the best way of going forward with this. Seems to be, as an augmentation to the workplace charging, and as we all know, there's now a great correlation between health and economic recovery tied to climate change, and this is one of the things that COVID has really shone a spotlight on is the correlation between those that are able to recover from COVID and actually clean air. So those that are countries that were most polluted were often had a longer recovery period, such as China and in northern Italy. So we forged a partnership with the Canadian Coalition for Green Healthcare, and this was a webinar series for hospital executives, fleet managers. It was across Canada, and we developed toolkits for them as well to do some further webinars after our initial webinar to help them understand how they can benefit their employees through adoption of workplace charging practices. And this was a really significant undertaking. It was actually a year-long exercise, which we had hoped to launch in person through a corporate webinar, but or a corporate seminar at our Discovery Center, but we moved that to an online format. And something we did was commingle actually industry, being utility, the utility sector, with EV owners who are very passionate, as you know, about diving deep into anything educational about electric vehicles. So this report really looked at the economic value proposition of EVs beyond the annual cost savings. It looked at V2G, vehicle to grid technology, and what could be the savings to the electricity system, and what could be the savings over time to an EV owner. And by the way, all these reports are published online on our website, pluganddrive.ca. If you look under the news tab, I believe all our publications are listed there. There's a lot of meaty stuff in there, and this received a lot of media attention, as well as, I'd say, high engagement among EV owners and would-be consumers to better understand sort of the longer-term potential and the economic upside of EVs in the future. So a bit more about our used EV program. As I mentioned, it was in person. We moved online. There's a $1,000 incentive for anyone that purchases, and we also implemented in February a scrappage incentive whereby a person that is scrapping their gas car would be eligible not only for $1,000 but really $2,000 if then they had to purchase a used EV. We were uncertain whether we would actually be able to, get uptake in this during COVID, but as I mentioned, there was significant incentives issued. In fact, we're over 500 now. And I think what I wanted to stress, by going online, we were able to really, I'd say, diversify the audience, not only geographically, because the seminars used to be offered in Toronto, we were able to attract a really wide audience. But what you see here by this graph as well, we did a comparison of a new EV owner demographic that you see on the far right. Are those people in the higher income streams, and the used EV owner, we're finding it's more equitable in terms of access, and we're attracting more of a mainstream audience now towards the purchase of electric vehicles. Coming soon, we're looking at employee engagement programs, similar to the webinar series on workplace charging. This is to engage employees around the benefits of driving electric, and we'll do that in a webinar format. I guess the most exciting new initiative underway is a brand new project, what we're calling MEET, our mobile EV education trailer. We'll be launching this in September in Ottawa, which is the nation's capital. We call it sort of a hybrid between the Discovery Center and Roadshow. Whereas a Roadshow, I'm getting a lot of messages. I know I'm probably going over time. Okay, I have to refresh my screen.
No.
Do I have any more time left, or do we have to call it? So this is what we call, I'd say, the hybrid solution with it not just being a road show, it's part EV Discovery Center. The road show, we typically is 1 or 2 days. The Discovery Center, we're landlocked in a location. This is more of a 2 to 3 month option at a location with a partner that we feel, there's brand alignment, and we'll be hosted by IKEA in Ottawa for about a 3-month period. And this will be our pilot project launching during Drive Electric Week. So it's something we're quite excited about. It will also be appointment-based. We will have a fleet of vehicles there as well. I think my time is running out. I just would like to say thank you again for letting me be part of this. There's certainly many challenges that everyone has faced, but I think one thing's for certain is EV owners, the EV industry is very resilient and willing to take on challenges. And I think it's just a matter of time that all of this hopefully will be in our rearview mirror.
Thank you so much, Dav. We will be sharing the presentation slides and the presentation recording after the webinar today. And finally, we'll hear from Joel Levin, our final speaker, who will give us some news on what to expect from National Drive Electric Week this year.
Thank you very much, and thanks everybody for joining us today. So I'm going to talk about National Drive Electric Week. So I'm the Executive Director of Plug-in America. Hopefully most people are familiar with us already. We're the National Association of EV Drivers around the US. And we put on Drive Electric Week every year together with the Electric Auto Association and Sierra Club. This is now our 10th year of doing Drive Electric Week. So we're really excited about it. It's coming up, as was mentioned earlier, it's September 26th to October 4th. And for those of you who've never been to it before, Drive Electric Week it's really the world's largest celebration of the electric car. So it's a series of events all the way across the US and Canada and other countries as well to honor the EVs and to be excited about them and to recognize EV drivers. This year, as you can imagine, it's going to be pretty different. When COVID first hit, we weren't sure how we were going to do this, and we thought about it a lot, and we kind of watched as COVID has played out. And I guess the philosophy that we have developed around ENDU this year is that it's going to be a hybrid of a few different kinds of events, depending on the situation in different places. Because this is a big country, COVID has not affected every city and state the same. And our philosophy with Drive Electric Week has always been around local control, that the strength of Drive Electric Week is the passion and the enthusiasm of the local city captains and volunteers. And we didn't want to take that away and sort of define everything from the top as to how things were going to be. I mean, more than we needed to. So there's going to be really 3 different kinds of events this year. In places where it is possible to put on a safe event, those are still going to be happening. So those are going to be on the whole smaller events than in previous years. It'll be only in places where you can do an event consistent with all of the requirements from your city, county, state health authorities. So people have to apply whatever the sort of most strict local requirements are. Then we've developed a set of rules for in-person events to make them safe. Our mantra has kind of been, outdoors, 6 feet apart, and wearing a mask. And we feel like if you can do events that are not large scale, that meet those requirements, then it should not be any more dangerous than anything else that people are doing now, than standing in line in front of Starbucks or whatever. And that this year events are going to be more focused around showing off your cars, kind of an EV expo. There's going to be like some parades where people are driving around in their EVs. The one thing that's going to be kind of a bummer and sort of limited is around ride and drive, so test drives. So historically, Drive Electric Week has been focused on doing lots and lots of test drives, because we really believe that the way that you sell EVs and you turn hearts and minds is you let people drive the cars, and that's when they discover how great they are. But we really felt that having two strangers in a car together just doesn't feel safe in this right now, what's going on in the US, and we're uncomfortable with that. So to the extent that people are going to do test drives, what we've asked is that it be one person in a car alone. And so some dealers are doing that. Some dealerships are comfortable with letting someone in a car, giving them a route, and then either having them drive it by themselves or having a chaser car behind them in case they get lost or anything goes wrong. We're with test drives, they're going to be only one person in a car at a time, and then also sanitizing the car between all drivers as well. So going over all the seats and the touch surfaces. So let me jump ahead here a little bit, and then we have a whole other set of requirements for putting on a safe event, sort of safety requirements. You can see that on our website. So we have two different kickoff events that are happening this year. So we normally have a small in-person reception in Los Angeles every year before the start of Drive Electric Week, where we honor some of the organizers and we give out our Drive Electric Awards. And so this year, that's going to be an online event, and it's open to everybody. It's 5 p.m. Pacific time on September 22nd, the Tuesday before the start of Drive Electric Week. It's going to be live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. And so we're going to be giving out all of our Drive Electric Awards at that event. And those awards, I think we're announcing them next week, the actual winners. So stay tuned for that. If you're on our mailing list, you'll see that, and hopefully it'll get picked up in the press a little bit. And then also we're doing a kickoff event. So that's going to be the Thursday before Drive Electric Week, September 24th at 5 p.m., jointly with CR Club and EAA. Also live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. And so that's going to be an hour and 15-minute event with a lot of some sneak previews of different things, some guest speakers, and should be a pretty fun event. So we encourage everyone to sign up for that. You can do that on the website. And then in addition to that, we have some other national events that we're putting on. So every day of Drive Electric Week, there's going to be a different kind of hour-long event on a different topic. These are still kind of coming together. We don't have all the speakers for them yet, but this will give you kind of a flavor of what these things will look like. One on new EVs. So right now we have 4 lined up, and we're hoping to get a couple of other automakers to talk about new vehicles coming out. One on battery recycling, EVs and equity, battery sourcing issues, looking at trucks. This is a big year for trucks with the new clean truck rule that's come out of California and other states that are looking at picking that up. EV policies around the world, and then a very practical discussion about how do you install a charging station at your house. So these are all going to be kind of 1-hour things that are open to anybody. So in terms of local events, this shows the map of events. We still have a lot of in-person events. Right now we have 118 that are signed up around the country. Those are the little green dots. And then there's also, we have about 48 right now online events that city captains are putting on, and those are the little white squares on the map. And you can find this map on the website for driveelectricweek.org. And so the in-person, the online events are intended, they're kind of local interests. They're sort of aimed at particular localities, but by the nature of online events, anyone can sign up for them. So if you're interested in those, you're certainly welcome to do that. And we're still looking for more events. So if you're thinking about putting on either an in-person or an online event, by all means, it is not too late. We still have lots of events coming onto the map. And of course, it's not too late to sign up for events as well. In fact, it's still pretty early to sign up for events. So we hope that people will go take a look at the map and see if there's either local, online, or in-person events that you're interested in. There's a function where you can type in your zip code and see what events are going on near you. So again, the website is driveelectricweek.org. And I think that is what I've got for you. So thank you very much, and I will hand the baton back to Fourth.
Thank you so much, Joel. And now we'll invite all of our speakers to turn on their webcam as we go into the Q&A portion of our presentation today. Okay, thank you all. So the very first question is, what are some of the effective ways, or what are the most effective ways to show our low-income consumers that during this time, EVs are still the best option if they're looking for a car? So what are some of the practices or the best practices around this? And I'll open it up to all of the speakers.
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Dav. Sure. So I think what we've learned through this exercise and by being able to offer webinars is we're able, as I showed through our income demographic, able to attract a different audience, younger, lower income, primarily because of our used EV program, which has been extremely successful and attracted a new audience to EVs.
Yeah, I'll second that. The programming is very different if you're talking about new vehicles and used vehicles. It's an interesting starting point because that's an automatic that automatically shuts down conversations for a lot of people. I don't remember the statistic, but it's a very small percentage of the population that's buying new cars. We need them to for the EVs, but we're lucky that we're at a point now where there's enough used EVs on the market to make them a more accessible option,
Right.
and especially with the incentive that you have for used EVs and the incentive that we have in Oregon, that can really, the income-based incentive, that can really open the door, and it definitely has in the conversations I've had with a broader EV audience.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, and we're, rather than doing too many in-person events, we're just more focused on the same messages, but to take those to an online venue. So doing online activities and focusing on, the messages around these are cars for everybody. They're cheaper, they're easy to maintain. There's lots of used cars that are available out there. You can fuel it at home instead of having to go spend money at the gas station. That, all the reasons that they are actually a pretty good fit for people who are of lower income, that those are all still out there. We just need to sort of shift it from doing online activities from in-person activities to more online activities and trying to still reach people with that message.
Yeah, and I'd say we're trying to make electric vehicles accessible, or at least the experience of electric vehicles, through either renting through our Turo program or using the electric car shares that we have available for specifically people of low income. I think the more you use these types of technologies, you just kind of get used to it and realize that, oh, this is a lot more cost effective than using a regular gas car.
Thank you. Another question regarding, we've heard from y'all that we're going virtual with some of our events. how are we getting the word out about our virtual contents, the virtual events? Are we using our ambassadors, for instance, or how are we reaching newer audience so our events are more diverse and we're not having the same attendees at all of our events? Stephen, do you want to take this first?
Sure. Yeah, I think I kind of touched on it with my presentation, but really partnering as much as you can with, community organizations or other organizations that can spread your message. It comes to EV ambassadors or just ambassadors in general. I think that's a great way to expand as well. Many people that own an EV might be like, yeah, I tell all my coworkers, I tell everyone. And I think that sharing out the content through them can be really helpful as well.
Yeah. What we found is we've focused more on online, reaching people online and through social media. So what's cool with social media is you can really kind of target. You can aim at people in particular geographic areas or with particular interest groups. And so you can kind of, if you have a group of people that you want to reach out to, you can kind of design a social media campaign around that.
Thank you. And I have a question specifically for you, Neil. During your presentation, you had mentioned you had a EV Match one-on-one consulting. So we had a question regarding what scheduling tools you were using to make that happen.
Yeah, we have used this tool for a while. It's called You Can Book Me, and it's a great tool. It ties into our Google Calendar system. You can have multiple different people on it, set different times of day. So I basically said I don't want to be answering EV questions all day, although it would be fun. So I set a chunk of time, a couple days of the week, and then it looks on my calendar. And if I book something on my calendar, it blocks it off. But yeah, that's definitely a good tool. And you can have multiple calendars feed into the same system too. So if you had a couple folks that wanted to give a couple hours a week.
Thank you. And we know that during this time, it's very challenging for some of the consumers to go out and want to participate in a ride and drive. So I wanted to open up the question about if there are any incentives being offered for consumers to come in, take a test drive, whether it's a gift card or whatever, and if you all can talk to that, I'll open it up.
I can give a non-COVID example of that. We really tried to expand people going and doing test drives outside of single day events. So out after Earth Day or Drive Electric Week, we tried throughout the rest of the month to encourage folks to go to a dealership and test drive. And we had an incentive for that. One of the challenges that we found was that it's really hard to find the people that are ready for that, and the barrier to doing that is really big in normal times. So we actually we did a second one and then had the incentive at the dealership, and that was a more effective incentive just to get people that were already interested in a car to drive an EV, and to get the salespeople to consider that as an option of what they were talking through. And it for a lot of the people, they'd never even taken somebody to the EV that was on the lot.
Thank you. So we're about 1 minute out before our time runs out. So I will just ask one more question to all of our panelists. We talk about the digital divide. I know you had mentioned that in your presentation, Stephen, but how are we addressing the digital divide with barriers to access, for instance, Wi-Fi, or barriers to the different languages? Because if we're introducing virtual content and we're inviting a lot of different attendees, they might not all be speaking English. So how are we making sure we're addressing those divides during this time as well? Dav, do you want to take this first?
Sure, I can start with that. So all of our webinars are videotaped, and we recognize for us, there's two audiences in particular that have shown interest in EVs, and where there might be a language barrier. One would be the Asian, particularly Chinese-speaking consumer, who used to frequent the Discovery Center often, but often with an English-speaking family member. So we had developed actually a platform. It was sponsored by one of the Chinese-speaking newspapers. And so we're looking at adapting our video series to be in that language, and then we would do a marketing campaign to attract them in. In answer to your other question about ways to bring in new people, it's really a good one, because often social media and our own internal lists do bring our repeat, family to the fore. But what we've done a fair bit of is Google AdWords campaigns, targeting specific demographics and audiences to draw in new customers, which I'd say Google is by far our best marketing campaign to bring in new customers to webinars. Of course, you can be anywhere to attend a webinar. So that answers it in twofold, I guess.
Thank you.
I'll just go real quickly. One of the things that we experimented with is just with the digital divide that spans so many different challenges that people have with technology, whether it be access or whether it be a new platform that intimidates somebody or that they're not comfortable with, or sharing information. So we have tried having our events also live streamed on social media platforms, which tend to be more accessible than the webinar format, which I'm familiar with and a lot of professionals are, but others aren't as familiar with or comfortable with. So that's been, it's not the same type of engagement, but it does get those get a lot of people in front of that content.
Thank you all so much. I want to say a big thank you for you all joining us today. And thank you to our speakers and panelists today. You can find their contact information here. If you would like to reach out, please feel free. We will also be sending a webinar recap email that will include the webinar recording, the webinar slides, and some additional resources and information as you all are planning your consumer engagement strategy for the remainder of the year. We hope that you can join us on Tuesday, September 8th for our next webinar in our fall series. We will be discussing renewable hydrogen infrastructure with our partner, Renewable Hydrogen Alliance. This webinar is also sponsored by Toyota. So with that, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks on Tuesday, September 8th.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming.